Welcome to this week's Clean Earth Energy Podcast. My name is Mark Weich. So, before I begin, I want to thank everyone for their support, checking out the podcast, and watching the associated YouTube videos. I'm really surprised by the response. It's something that I completely did not imagine. So, thank you very much for tuning in and all of the support. And also, if you have any feedback, any comments, any requests, please send them my way. Again, Clean Earth Energy is on all of the major social media platforms, so feel free to connect with us on your favorite platform. Okay, so this week I want to talk about ADS and ADAS, okay? And before I get into what that is, very simple. Tesla, Waymo, and Uber and the autonomous functions of these vehicles. So there's all types of news out there about autonomous vehicles, self-driving vehicles, and so on. And there's some misinformation as well, and maybe some negative publicity. And this podcast is to clarify many of those things. Now, disclaimer, it is not to defend any of the companies that are named in this podcast. It is simply to provide some information about the different functions and why certain incidents may happen and what sort of role the technology plays, and in some instances, what role the human plays. Okay, so going back to what I mentioned just a moment ago, ADS, so that is an advanced driver system. Okay, and then there is ADAS, and that is an advanced driver assistance system. So they are different. Okay. Now, ADS actually means autonomy, meaning something like a Waymo, something like a GM Cruise service, and something like a Motional service that I mentioned in one of my previous podcasts. The collaboration between Hyundai and Aptiv, and also Uber Eats as well. So there is a difference between them. So what you have is some overlap, but then some clear separation between them. Okay, so what are the differences specifically? Well, there are 5 levels of autonomy when it comes to self-driving vehicles and autonomous vehicles. And this is where there is overlap between something that you might find in a Honda product, a Honda motor vehicle product with Honda sensing, all the way to a Waymo or GM Cruise product where they are operating as robotaxis and can drive themselves. So if we take the Honda example, ADAS is level 1 and level 2 autonomy. And what does that mean? Well, level 1 autonomy, many vehicles feature this, and it's everything from sort of lane keeping functionality for the vehicle. So if the driver is not centering the vehicle will either alert the driver or steer the car back into lane if the driver is either not paying attention or if the driver is not intending to switch lanes for whatever reason. And in some cases, that can also mean sort of braking assist as well. The car can sense an impending collision and apply the brakes for the driver. So that is level 1, and that is ADAS. Level 2 is a bit different. Level 2 is the vehicle can drive itself under certain conditions. So, for example, at highway cruising speeds, it can drive itself. It can navigate itself, let's say, into exit ramps or onto streets if it detects that traffic is clear. However, with level 2, the driver must be engaged with the vehicle at all times. And in a situation where the level 2 autonomy is not behaving as expected, or where the driver is required to engage, the driver must take over the vehicle. And so I want to bookmark that point on level 2 autonomy. That is very important in this whole sort of conversation about ADAS and ADS. So then we get to level three. So level three is the vehicle. This is where we begin the point of ADS, the autonomous driving system. So this is where the vehicle can drive itself in most cases. So it can navigate through traffic, it can stop and start, it can drive to a predetermined destination. And in this system, the driver must be prepared to engage and take over the vehicle in a given situation. So that's a very sort of fine difference between level two autonomy and level three autonomy. So level two autonomy, the driver must engage. Level three autonomy, the driver must be prepared to engage. So how do we define that? Well, that's a big part of some of the issues that we're having with autonomous driving presently. And I'll get to that a bit more shortly. So then we continue to level four. So level four is autonomous driving, and that's also there is little to, if any, minimal driver intervention in the driving function of the vehicle. And so the vehicle is able to navigate on highways, on streets. It is able to drive itself to a predetermined location with minimal intervention from the driver. So this is why the Waymo and Cruise examples work the way they do, is because those vehicles can drive themselves and they can carry passengers around, and they are able to do this without the aid of a human being in the car. Now, to date, Waymo and Cruise have been testing their cars with a human aid present in the vehicle. So basically to take over the vehicle as they test and capture data about the performance of the vehicles in the real world. But as I mentioned in one of my previous podcasts, the GM Cruise service has recently been approved by the state of California to operate robotaxis in the city of San Francisco between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And the reason why it's that window is there's less traffic on the road, and that means less potential for an accident involving the GM Cruise robotaxi and potentially an injury or fatality while the robotaxi is operating. So that is an example of level four. Now we're on to level five. Level five is complete autonomy. That means there is no intervention needed from a human aid. The vehicle is able to drive itself entirely without human assistance. So much so that the vehicle may not even require a steering wheel or pedals to control the vehicle, meaning an accelerator pedal or a braking pedal. So that is true autonomy. So those are the five levels of autonomous driving. I'm going to put that on the Clean Earth Energy website so you can see examples of where the distinction is between ADS and ADAS, or actually vice versa, ADAS level 1 and level 2, and ADS level 3 on to level 5. Okay, so that brings me to sort of what's happening now. So recently, the U.S. National Highway and Transportation Safety Administration has released some reports on vehicle crashes involving ADAS, level 1 and level 2 autonomy, and ADS, level 3 through 5 autonomy. And there is sort of very kind of prominent figure in the crash data, and that would be Tesla. And so Tesla has been reported to have 270 crashes involving its vehicles in less than 1 year's time. The reporting period is from July 2021 until May of this year, 2022. So it's easy to say, well, there's something wrong with Tesla vehicles because they crash so much. Well, that is not exactly the case. The reporting, what it sort of has really kind of tried to explain is that the crashes have involved Teslas that are equipped with Autopilot, and that is Tesla's advanced driver assistance system, ADAS system for its vehicles, and that is level 2 autonomy. And in order to understand that, Tesla has software as well as cameras strategically placed around the vehicle to help the vehicle understand its surroundings and navigate using that data from the cameras. Okay, so back to my point. So 273 crashes involving Teslas with autopilot, and then their second piece of functionality, full self-driving. So those are two different features in the Tesla vehicles. So full self-driving is a software-driven artificial intelligence function that allows the Tesla vehicles to drive themselves to a predetermined destination. However, that does not make Teslas autonomous vehicles. They are level 2 vehicles. Full self-driving is an advanced driver assistance system, as is autopilot. And so there is, I think, a bit of sort of, what's the word? A misinterpretation of what autopilot is and what full self-driving is. And part of that is on Tesla. Okay. And so I'm going to sort of explain what's happening here. So there have been several reports about Teslas crashing into stationary vehicles, mainly emergency responder vehicles. So that would be police, fire, and ambulance. I believe there have been somewhere in the range of about 37 crashes of Tesla vehicles into first responder type vehicles. And in some cases, there have been fatalities. I believe about 16 fatalities involving Tesla and its ADAS functionality. Okay, so what is the role that Tesla plays in this? Well, Tesla has effectively marketed the vehicles as sort of an autonomous function, and can't go so far as to say that it was intentional or deceptive. Okay, it's a lot like Samsung with its smartphones. They market their smartphones as being secure, but they run on Android. Well, the question is what is the definition of secure? We can have some pretty broad definitions of that, but the way in the Samsung example, the way they market is that Samsung devices, Galaxy and Note, are secure smartphones. But if you look at sort of security research and incidents, again, in what context is it secure in terms of someone being able to get into another person's phone without authorization, and that could be somewhere like the passcode, or is it hacking into the phone? So what is the definition of secure? Well, that applies in sort of the Tesla situation. What is autonomous driving? What is self-driving? And one of the big contributors to this is a video that Tesla released about 3 years ago showing them demo the autopilot feature, or the full self-driving feature of their vehicle. It's about a 2-minute video. And if you watch the video, it is easy to determine that the vehicles do drive themselves with almost no intervention from the driver occupying the vehicle. And so Tesla has since put some stipulations, some disclaimers around what full self-driving can do, what autopilot can do. And that's because they have come under quite a bit of scrutiny from the federal government. And that's everything from the Congress to National Highway Transportation and Safety, NHTSA, as well as the Department of Justice. But we know that this autopilot functionality and full self-driving functionality are early adopter type technology. So once the owners get the vehicles into their hands, do they really, one, understand the full scope of full self-driving FSD and autopilot? Are they putting too much trust in the vehicles, the drivers, the owners of the Tesla vehicles? Are they putting too much trust in the vehicles? So these are situations where perhaps the context in which Tesla has marketed their vehicles has, one, not been entirely sort of linear in terms of communicating the limitations of the system and the responsibility of the driver. And then secondarily, the driver sort of recognizes this as a very cool or novel feature and perhaps disregards the need to engage actively with the vehicle while it is driving. So this is the issue. Now, why am I bringing up the role of the driver in this? Well, the fact of the matter is, at least in the investigations involving the Tesla crashes, the Tesla autopilot system has disengaged itself roughly 1 second before impact. And that is very significant because that means if there was a situation, let's say involving heavy traffic or the presence of emergency responders, and the driver occupant of the vehicle is not actively engaged, they are letting autopilot sort of direct the vehicle, and then autopilot senses an impending obstacle in which it is too late to override the system. Well, then that is a failed scenario because the driver has not engaged with the system in a sufficient amount of time. The other issue is, well, what is Tesla doing on its end to prevent that from happening? Well, Tesla has already said we are not responsible for drivers not being actively engaged with the system. We explicitly say that the driver must be engaged with the system, autopilot system, at all times. Now, the guidance from NHTSA in terms of the crash data is that Tesla can use this data to evaluate the safety of their advanced driver assistance systems and make any sort of necessary remedies or improvements to their system. Now, if NHTSA finds a significant flaw with the system, they can mandate that Tesla rework their systems to improve the safety, to improve the responsiveness of the system, to prevent either crashes and the system or the vehicle behaving unexpectedly in traffic scenarios when the driver must be engaged. So I've said a lot there. So moving on to where this is going right now. Well, why is Tesla sort of ranked so highly above or so uniquely above other auto manufacturers? Well, other automakers don't have this kind of technology, number one. And then number two, if they do have it, the systems are not necessarily created equal. So for example, Honda has what's called Honda Sensing, and that is a level 2 ADAS system as well. The vehicle can sort of navigate itself in certain scenarios, but really what the system is designed to do is lane keeping, as well as also the vehicle's sort of interactions with the road. So let's say cruise control and keeping safe distances from other vehicles while cruising. So that is level 2. And Honda has reported 90 crashes of its vehicles involving its level 2 autonomy. Okay, but there are many other auto manufacturers who don't have these kind of metrics. And yes, that is true. Well, for some auto manufacturers, the way their systems work, namely Tesla, Tesla is a highly software-driven advanced driver assistance system. So in the event of a crash, it is often very easy to get that crash data from the vehicle, for the vehicle to report what happened, what was the circumstances, what were the circumstances at the time, which systems were engaged, what did the vehicle perceive at the time of the crash. Similarly, based on the numbers that have been reported, it seems that Honda Sensing can do that as well. So providing real-time, if not immediate data in terms of what was happening with the vehicle. Well, not all vehicles do that. Some vehicles need to dig deep into the software to understand sort of what the telemetry was of the vehicle at that time. Maybe some of that data is not kept or stored with any real level of detail for other auto manufacturers to provide sufficient reporting data. So that's why Tesla typically ranks so much higher than other auto manufacturers when it comes to crash reporting data. And certainly, I'm sure that is by design from Tesla, so that they can understand the performance of their data in the real world. Tesla vehicles do collect mountains of data while the vehicles are in operation. One, for understanding, again, the vehicle and its environment, but two, helping Tesla to improve its autonomy functions based on what all of its vehicles are doing in the real world. And so millions of miles of data is captured daily by Tesla. Okay, so that explains ADS and ADAS. Well, I'm sorry, that explains ADAS. So hopefully that's been useful in terms of understanding sort of where Tesla sort of falls in this whole kind of landscape of autonomous driving and the sort of issues that have been reported with their vehicles. Fair or unfair? Obviously, Tesla is in the spotlight, and there are some questions around the functionality of their autonomous driving functions. But again, it is not autonomous driving, it is advanced driver assistance systems, ADAS. Now, I have test driven a Tesla with Autopilot, and I was completely put off by the experience. That was about 3 years ago. The road markings were not clear on the road. I felt that the vehicle behaved too aggressively and was really counter to how I would handle a vehicle in those types of driving conditions. So I immediately disengaged the autopilot system. Me personally, I would not leverage the autopilot functionality or the full self-driving functionality. It is my personal view that I do not understand what the car perceives and what sort of decisions it's making based on its perception of the environment. I must maintain that control over the vehicle. But that is my personal position. But obviously, many other vehicle owners, namely Tesla owners, may have different feelings about that. But again, to each his own in terms of what that means for vehicle owners. Okay, so now let's move on to ADAS. So I'm sorry, ADS, advanced or autonomous driving systems. And again, this would include level 3 through level 5 autonomy. So right now, there is only one passenger vehicle manufacturer that is approved for level 3 autonomy, and that is Mercedes-Benz. They have the DRIVE Pilot system. And the DRIVE Pilot Level 3 system allows the vehicle to drive under normal operating circumstances without or with minimal intervention from the driver. Now, the vehicle must be traveling at a speed of 38 miles per hour or less in order for that functionality to work. Otherwise, the driver is required to handle the vehicle. And so that's Mercedes-Benz specific rules because they have put some very sort of rigid parameters around their vehicles while it is in the sort of testing phase. And their vehicles are enabled according to certain approved roads. So roads on the Autobahn in Germany and select roads in California, where level 3 autonomy is available to the driver. So that is a level 3 type of functionality, and they are the only manufacturer, passenger vehicle manufacturer, who has that capability right now. And the thing to understand with that type of functionality at the moment is it is still very much in development. Mercedes-Benz has even recently said that they will assume the liability of any crashes involving its vehicles where the autonomy functionality was engaged. And so that is an example of Mercedes-Benz Level 3 ADS. So the key thing is for us to, or for the audience to be very clear on what sort of the parameters are around autonomous driving functions and advanced driver assistance systems. So I talked about Cruise, GM Cruise and Waymo at level 4. I don't need to go into it any further, but there's been some crash data reported from NHTSA about Waymo, and Waymo's had about 100 crashes involving its vehicles, and certainly it can reflect negatively on Waymo. Waymo has responded very quickly, not so fast. Uh, Certainly, we have several vehicles on the road, so that there will be incidents. We are always using that crash data to improve our service. And so they take that very seriously. They have not raised any objections to the NHTSA report, but in an attempt to counter negative perceptions, they have gone on record to say, yes, it is helpful that this data has been published, but we use the data to improve our service. Now, does that make the general public, pedestrians and other drivers feel good about the Waymo service? That's highly debatable. Waymo's actively testing in California and Arizona and also Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And certainly there are scenarios where the vehicles could improve on their functionality. And how aware is the general public aware of the full extent of these autonomous driving vehicles, robotaxis, and so on? Or what really requires an active sort of communication dialogue and transparency around what these vehicles do, potential safety issues, limitations, and so on. So that's where we are with level 4 autonomy with Waymo. So I'll speak briefly about level 5. So there's not a lot of examples of level 5 autonomy. There is an autonomous driving company called Zoox, Zoox. They are testing level 5 autonomous driving in their vehicles. I am not aware of the use case right now. They've had a handful of crashes, I believe about 10 crashes involving their level 5 vehicles. Okay, so the point I want to make about level 5 ADS is that there are not many examples of level 5 ADS. The key thing is that it is AI driven, and the AI component begins at level 2, but is really evolved at level 5, where no human aid is needed or even necessary. And also, again, even driver controls are not necessary in level 5 autonomous vehicles. So across the industry, when it comes to autonomous driving, the thinking is that it is nearly impossible to achieve level 5 autonomous driving. Now, of course, you'll hear some people say nothing is impossible. Perhaps level 5 autonomy will be achieved in time. Even level 4 autonomy is debatable as to how capable that level of autonomy will be. So that's the key thing to understand about level 5. Now, the thing that we haven't talked about, which is really out of the scope of this particular podcast, is should we be relying on the vehicles themselves and their technology, so cameras and LiDAR and radar, to achieve full autonomy? Or should there be infrastructure improvements to help vehicles navigate safely? So everything from sensors on traffic lights and in the road to communication systems between road infrastructure, other vehicles, and the autonomous vehicles to help them navigate, and even things down to the smartphone, again, for environmental awareness of these vehicles. So obviously, that's a huge complexity, huge investment required in order to do that, and perhaps quite a significant amount of time to implement. So this podcast, there still remains many questions unresolved, but I think this is the starting point in terms of what I've covered today: ADS and ADAS, level 1 to level 5 autonomy. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this topic. What do you think about the sort of ADAS capabilities and what they should be? What do you think of ADS? Do you think that autonomous vehicles, self-driving vehicles, is feasible, is realistic, or is it a situation where this is, what can I say, a fruitless pursuit, meaning nothing will come of this? So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. I've certainly communicated a lot here. I'd like to hear what you think. So once again, thanks for checking out this podcast. My name is Mark White. Again, follow us and like us on your favorite social media platform, and don't hesitate to leave feedback as well. Thanks again for checking in. Really do appreciate the support, and see you in the next one.